time. Back, gonna get a few more precepts, part two, of this video. So, I had to do something real quick, but I want to get this quick precept. Uh, Hebrews, real quick, chapter 10. I'm gonna grab Hebrews chapter 10. I'm gonna start at verse number 31. Right? It said, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God, but call to remembrance the former days in which, after you were illuminated, ye endured a great fight of afflictions. You know, so like I was saying before, to not forget the works of the Most High, you got to look back to the former days. The former days, whether it's in your present life or the former days, as in our ancestors, our forefathers, foremothers. We got to call back to those days when the Most High, allowed us to, push through adversity and wax stronger in the Lord, right? When he gave us the confidence to make it out, of a situation, we prevailed, you know, and then afterwards they prosper, right? So we got to call back to those days, and there's countless precepts telling you to do that, right? It's countless precepts telling you to do that, right? If you don't do that, how are you going to ever have an example, right? If you don't call back to remembrance, a certain time when you fought through affliction, how will you fight through the next affliction? You might be going through a lust spirit. You might be dealing with a lust spirit, with a woman trying to link up with you, or a man trying to link up with you at 2:30 in the morning. How are you going to fight that demon off if you don't think about the time that you fought it off before, and think about the precepts that you thought about before, and think about the time that Judith fought off, the demons that was trying to, get her to commit adultery, or the demon that was trying to get Joseph to commit adultery. If you don't call back and think back to the days, remember the Most High's works from before, how can you do it now, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Let's go to Sirach, the classic chapter. Everybody loves this chapter, right? Everybody loves it, right? But this is Sirach chapter 2 and verse number 10. It says, look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his spirit and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? Right? Who did the Lord just turn away that was sincerely calling upon him so that they could continue to serve him in sincerity? I've never seen it. You see people that call upon him only when they're in trouble. You see people that call upon the Lord when, everything's already messed up for them, when they're already in the gym. That's the only time people call upon the Lord. They're not calling upon the Lord trying to, make things right when things are good, when things are, are bad, when things are just chill. They're not calling upon the, calling upon the Lord when things are like that. They only trying to, you know, get over on the Lord. They think that they could get over on the Lord, just like a Mormon. Mormons think they could get over on the Lord. Christians think they could get over on the Lord. They think that they could do all this sinning. They think they could forget about the Most High, forget about His works, forget about His power, forget to pray to Him, forget to fast for Him, forget to, throw up these spiritual sacrifices. Think that they could call upon Him, and you know, when they need something, when it's beneficial for them. You can't serve the Lord when it's only beneficial for you. You got to serve the Lord day and night. That's what the men was doing back then. They were serving the Lord day and night. They were in the offices, fighting day and night, building the temple day and night, praying day and night. Right? Let me get this quick precept on this sister, the sister Hannah. Right? Let's go to Luke real quick, chapter 2. Right, 2 and verse number 36. Right, it says, and there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age and had lived with her husband 7 years from her virginity. And she was a widow of about fourscore and 4 years, which departed not from the temple, but served God with fasting and prayers night and day. Right? So she was fasting, praying day and night. She wasn't just, I'm going to fast this day or I'm going to fast that day. I'm going to pray for the people this day. And then I'm going to just do it a little bit later, as well. No, she was doing it night and day, constantly magnifying the name of Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, you know. trying to, get her people out of oppression, right? She didn't stop because, she was in captivity. She didn't make excuses because she was in captivity. No, she just kept doing what she was supposed to do, and that's how you got to remind yourself every single day, right? If you don't remind yourself, you're gonna destroy yourself, right? So let's go back to Hebrews chapter 10, right? This is Hebrews chapter 10 and verse number start at verse 33. It says, partly was he were made a gazing stock, both by reproaches and afflictions, and partly was he became companions of them that were so used. For he had compassions of me and my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of goods. I'm gonna drop down to verse 35. It says, cast not away therefore your confidence, which has great recompense of reward. For ye have need of patience, that after ye have done the will of Yahweh, ye might receive the promise. Right? So after having patience, after fighting affliction, after going through tough times, and calling to remembrance the Most High, then you get your reward. You don't get your reward, in the middle of a race. You don't become, be called a winner and get a trophy, when you're not done, competing. Right now you're in a competition right now, against the spirits, against many people. And you gotta win. You gotta win first, and then you get your reward later. I just never seen nobody, get paid while they're still doing their job. You don't get your last week's check. You don't get your last week's check during this week. The check that you get this week is from the work that you put in last week. So once you finish doing all your clocking in for last week, then you get your reward this week. So it's the same thing with the truth. You clocking in for this long and this long and this long for Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, then you get your reward later on. You know, so that's just what you got to remember, right? Right. It says, for yet a little while, and he that come and he that shall come will come and will not tarry. Now the just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul have no pleasure in him. For we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul. Right? So that's what you got to remember. Don't be of those that draw back because the times get hard, because they have no patience, because they can't handle affliction. Don't be of them. Those men don't get a reward. And then, I mean, they get a reward of unrighteousness, which is, destruction, nuclear fire, pestilence, and plagues. Be of those that don't draw back, because you want the Lord to have pleasure in you. Right? So I'm gonna get this. We get one, maybe one or two more precepts, right? But I'm gonna get Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3, and verse number. We'll start at verse number 5. It says, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for himself. Right? And you just got to think about that. You know, that should motivate you. I bet that the Most High, the reason you going through things that you go through, is because the Most High is trying to see if you're worthy to get the kingdom, to see if you're worthy of ruling over a city of, 10 cities or a city or 25 cities, or if you're worthy to be a woman, that does mighty things in the kingdom of heaven, that has, children and help raises up children in the kingdom of heaven. So the Most High is trying to try you to see, if you're worth that. You know, if you're not worthy of doing that, the Most High, why He doesn't have no need for you. If you can't prove yourself here, what's the point? You know. So it says, as gold in the furnace hath He tried them and received them as a burnt offering, right? So He's trying you as as gold in the furnace to make you perfect gold, right? To make you good, valuable gold. You don't want to be down, just some damn bronze shavings or some steel shavings or some damn shaved up grass or something. You want to be gold that was purified, and turned into something amazing, you know. So that's what you want to always remember. So I'm gonna drop down to this last precept in verse number 9. It says, they that put their trust in him shall understand the truth, and such as be faithful in love shall abide with him. For grace and mercy is to his saints, he hath cared for his elect. So the elect, they're gonna trust in the Lord. They're gonna understand the truth, and they're gonna constantly endure temptation. They're gonna constantly remember the works of the Most High and call to remembrance the things that He did for them, and not only them, but that their ancestors. And that's how you become the elect. The elect, they're gonna you will go through many different things in this life, you know, but they're gonna always be able to maintain their ways towards the Most High. So with that, I'm gonna give all honor, glory, and praise to you. How about you, Shai? This is part two of you forgot the Most High's words. With that, all praise to the Most High. Shalom.